The air was unnaturally still that morning. No breeze disturbed the gray curtains of dust that hung in the hall of the derelict sanatorium. The modern world hummed faintly outside, faint traffic, a siren in the distance, but within these walls, time had stopped. The scholar, Dr. Elias Ward, stood before the rusted doorframe that had consumed his thoughts for months. His torchlight trembled faintly, as though afraid to touch what lay beyond. It was not, strictly speaking, a door anymore. It was a wound. The iron had melted inward long ago, warped by an unknown heat. The frame bowed toward the center, as if something had once forced itself out through it. Or perhaps in. The remnants of Dr. Nathaniel Harrow's notes had led Elias here, and now the final line in Harrow's journal echoed in his head like a prayer and a curse. The ninth is not an opening, but an awakening. We were always inside. Elias swallowed. He had studied ancient diseases, forgotten symbols, neurological contagions, yet this sentence had undone him. In the weeks since discovering the Harrow documents, his nights had been consumed by whispering dreams. He saw rooms that breathed, corridors that pulsed with slow, human rhythm. The more he tried to rationalize it, the more he felt that his mind was not entirely his own anymore. And now, standing before the warped archway, he felt it again, the faint, syncopated throb behind the walls. The pulse. He lifted his recorder. Site log 31A. This is Dr. Ward. I've reached sublevel 9 of the Blackwell Asylum ruins. The markings match Harrow's final diagram. The symbol, the cross circle, appears burned into the lintel. The air pressure here changes with my heartbeat. Literally, I can hear it respond. He hesitated. Correction, he whispered. I think it anticipates. He took a step closer. The concrete floor under his boots softened, not visually, but in sound. His footfalls were swallowed, as if he were walking through breath rather than air. He raised his light, revealing what had been hidden under the centuries of decay, veins of reddish material running along the stone, faintly luminescent. Not paint, not rust. It was living tissue. Elias exhaled sharply. It's organic, he murmured into the recorder. Either fungal mass or... But no, the pattern was too deliberate. Each branching vein terminated at the symbol, and from there converged downward toward the threshold, like nerves reaching toward a brain. He crouched, brushing dust aside, and found words etched beneath the surface. The door is not a passage, but a promise. He felt a sudden urge to back away, to leave the recorder behind and burn the building. But his rational mind, the scholar's arrogance, pushed him onward. Harrow's work had been lost, condemned as madness, but Elias had spent a lifetime chasing truth where others feared to look. He raised his hand and pressed his palm to the symbol. It was warm, and it beat. A single pulse ran up his arm, synchronized perfectly with his heart. His breath caught. For a second, there was no pain, no fear, only the clear, crystalline sense of being seen from inside his own body. The walls seemed to tilt inward, the air compressing around him. Then came the voice. Not a sound, but a resonance, deep, subcellular. It emerged from somewhere inside his bones. We remember you. Elias froze. The sound wasn't language in the normal sense. It was emotion sculpted into tone, sadness, curiosity, and recognition all folded together. He pulled his hand back, trembling. His skin bore a faint imprint of the symbol, glowing faintly before fading away. He stumbled backward. This isn't possible, he whispered. This can't. The recorder clicked softly. Static filled the air. And then, through the static, another voice answered. Nathaniel Harrow. Log continues. Elias blinked. He hadn't pressed play, hadn't even realized the recorder had old tape inside it. The voice that came next was unmistakably Harrow's, the old physician whose work had driven him to madness a century ago. If you've reached this place, then you've already heard it. The pulse. It's not a sound, not even a life form in the conventional sense. It's a memory that learned to live. It uses flesh as language. It grows in dreams, not cells. Elias's mouth went dry. We believed we were opening something external, Harrow's voice continued. But the ninth door was never built. It was remembered. The human brain carries it like an organ that forgot its purpose. Every dream of a door, every nightmare being watched, is a mind rehearsing the act of return. The recording ended in silence. Then, faintly, Elias realized something horrifying. The static wasn't gone. It was breathing. He stepped back toward the arch. The symbol had begun to expand, the red light blooming from within. The walls contracted once, a long, slow inhalation. Dust lifted from the floor and hung suspended like pollen in a deep lung. Elias wanted to run, to abandon all of it. But something rooted him there. Curiosity, yes, but more than that, recognition. It was as if the walls were waiting for him to say something, to complete an unfinished sentence. And somewhere in the depths of the asylum, he heard footsteps. Slow, bare, wet, he toned. His light caught a figure approaching from the corridor, a woman in a tattered 19th century gown, her face half hidden by long, matted hair. One of her eyes was missing, the other glowed faintly red. Clara. Her presence felt not ghostly, but present. The air bent around her, light dimming as if unwilling to touch her skin. She moved like a puppet half aware of its strings. Clara Harrow. Elias whispered, "Are you—" But before he could finish, she raised a trembling hand and touched the same symbol on the wall. The red light flared, washing across both of them. And for an instant, he saw what she saw. Not walls, not a corridor, an infinite plain of dark flesh, stretching in every direction, undulating like water. Countless doorways hung in the air, some open, some sealed, each leading not to rooms but to lives. Memories, faces screaming soundlessly behind thin membranes. The 9th door loomed above them all, not as an object but as a concept, a titanic shape without edges, its center pulsing with something that was not light but awareness. And through it, Elias felt his mind unfold. He understood. Then, the pulse was no disease, no demon. It was a residue of consciousness itself, shed by humanity like skin. Every forgotten thought, every unspoken fear, every self that died in silence had flowed here, into this endless dreaming body. The 9th door was a membrane between individual mind and that collective oblivion. Harrow had not discovered it. He had remembered it. Clara's voice came, cracked and wet. It's been waiting for another mind to look back. Elias stumbled, gasping as the vision receded. "Why me?" "Because," she said, "you already opened it. You just don't remember when." The light flickered. For a moment, Elias saw his reflection in the warped metal of the wall, and saw two silhouettes standing side by side, identical in outline. His own face, duplicated, one with eyes, one hollow. His recorder fell to the ground, hissing softly. Clara stepped closer. The air between them vibrated, almost humming. "You're hearing it now," she whispered. "The pulse beneath thought. Once it enters your awareness, it never leaves. You can't close your eyes without seeing it watching back. Every reflection you've ever seen was its way of measuring you." Her voice cracked into a sob. "I've been here so long." Elias felt his rationality fraying. His body trembled, but the terror was no longer sharp. It was slow, spreading like warmth. Something inside him had accepted the impossible, and that acceptance itself was the infection. He looked at Clara, and for a heartbeat, saw the truth behind her shape, a vast architecture of nerves and thought and shadow, folded into human form like origami. She smiled, and when she did, her teeth glimmered like shards of bone glass. Then she stepped backward into the light. The glow swallowed her, and the pulse stopped. Elias stood alone in the silence. His heartbeat returned to normal. The walls no longer moved. Had it ended? Had he hallucinated? He picked up the recorder again. It was silent, but warm to the touch. He turned it over. On the back, the faint symbol had burned itself into the metal casing. He stared at it for a long time. Then, from deep inside the corridor behind him, came a whisper, faint, tender, almost human. "You've always been here, Elias." He toned. The hole was empty. But on the far wall, where once there had been plaster and shadow, now there was something else, a faint, slow movement beneath the surface, like breath trapped behind stone. He lifted his torch. There, beneath the peeling paint, were faint outlines, human faces, countless, pressed into wall as if trying to emerge. Their mouths opened soundlessly in unison, forming a single word he could not hear but felt in his bones. He staggered backward. The air grew heavy, charged with static electricity and sorrow. For the first time, he realized that Harrow had not failed. He had succeeded. The ninth door had never been a portal to another realm. It was a final stage of memory, the convergence point where thought becomes matter, and matter learns to think. And now, by remembering it, Elias had reawakened it. He switched off his torch. The dark was absolute. Yet even with his eyes closed, he could still see the symbol glowing faintly inside his skull. The door is not a passage, but a promise. He smiled weakly, and somewhere, beyond flesh and reason, something smiled